everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Crime Chatter. I wanted to touch base on a little gossip regarding Alex Cox today. I find it really interesting that Mr. Cox is the center of this investigation, and we know very little about him, probably at this point because he is deceased. His ex-wife, Zumela Bastines, is still living. But outside of that, we know very little about him. We know that he was a comedian of sorts, and also a truck driver, and also the brother of Lori Vallow, and also is suspected of playing a huge part, if not being the murderer of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. So, anyway, what I wanted to read you today is something that came off of a Facebook group. There are many Facebook groups out there that are following this Lori Vallow cult mom case. This one I happened to stumble across came from one called True Crime Underground, so I wanted to give them a shout out. If you are looking for a good Facebook group that you want to discuss some speculation and things, of course we have ours, which is Crime Chatter, but also True Crime Underground is very active in the Vallow Daybell case. So if you'd like to jump over there and check out those folks' Facebook, there's some other podcaster and things that are involved with that, and I'm sure that they would love to have you. So let's chat about this email. This came as a, I guess, secret submission from someone that knew Alex, and I found it pretty insightful, and just wanted to read through it with you and go over what it says and just kind of fill you in on getting a better view of who Alex Cox is. So it starts, my story with Alex Cox. Today is August the 12th, 2020. And I would have never imagined that 7 years later, after meeting Alex, I was going to be writing this message. I know some of the things I will mention here are not going to be well received by some of you, but the purpose of my story is not to please or entertain you. I'm human, just like every person involved in this horrific case. I have no hate in my heart for Chad, Lori, or Alex. Nothing good ever comes from hating, but I do pray precious Tylee and JJ get justice, and may their names never be forgotten. This is my story. My friend, who I will call Vanessa, was subscribed to a marriage agency and had received an email inviting her to a dating event. We were at work when she started talking about it and asked me if I wanted to go with her. I found it odd that she was part of something like that, but I guess she simply wanted to find someone to love her. So I asked her if they were looking for any interpreters at the event. She did not know, so she emailed the owner of the business, and he said he was. We got hired right away. It paid well. It was a good way to make easy, fun money. I met Alex Cox on September 20th, 2013 in Colombia, South America. I was 27 years old and he was 45. I still remember he was wearing light brown dress pants and a sky blue short sleeve style shirt with white buttons. He was smiling when I approached him and said to him, "Hi, my name is, I'll be your interpreter during the tour." He gave me an even bigger smile and said, "Hi, my name is Alex Cox." We connected immediately. We started a conversation asking questions about each other. He told me he was from Arizona, that he was a truck driver, a comedian, and a certified massage therapist. I definitely knew he was telling the truth when he said he was a comedian. I laughed so much that night and for the day to come. He was absolutely funny and had the most beautiful green eyes I had ever seen. That night was the first night of the romance tour. There were at least 500 women in a big event room at a fancy hotel in the city, where there were maybe 13 to 20 gentlemen, including Alex, that came from different parts of the world, the USA mostly, to find a wife. Amongst all these women, of course, there were some men that were looking just for sex. I know there's been a lot of rumor about Alex going down to Colombia and having sex parties with hookers, and I don't know What else? But I can tell you that's not the Alex that I met. He met a few girls that night, maybe 3 or 4. At the end of the night, he left with one of them. Where did they go and what do they do? I wouldn't know until the next day. I went home for the night and came back the next day in the afternoon to continue being his interpreter. I was waiting for him in the lobby when he came down from his hotel room. He was just smiling. We greeted each other and he told me he'd gotten the phone number from one of the girls he met the night before and had set up a date for them. We waited and waited and waited and the girl never showed up. So Alex said to me, "You're already here and I'll pay you, of course. So why don't you show me around? Let's have lunch." I took him to a nice area of the city. We went to my favorite Chinese restaurant. We ordered, and when we were ready to eat, I hit a water jug with my elbow. And of course, there was water all over the table. I was so embarrassed, LOL. And I kept on saying how sorry I was while I was trying to keep the water from running down his leg, LOL. He started laughing, so I started laughing too. And he said, "It's okay. The waiter will take care of it. Don't feel bad. It happens. Let's just eat." He was all jokes and smiles, very easygoing, very calm. He was like that all of the time. We left the restaurant and went to a French place across from the street. I told him that they had the best ice cream in town. I suggested the French vanilla ice cream cone, and he loved it. We went back to the hotel. I got paid, and I went home to change. There was another event that night. That night, they had a buffet and a pool party. They did a dancing contest and I encouraged him to participate. It was so funny to see him dance. He was very tall and didn't have the best moves, but he was enjoying himself. We talked a little bit more that night. He met a few more girls that night and I helped him set up a date with one of them for the next day. He didn't have a kind of woman, but he definitely connected with the ones that were funny. I went home and then came back the next morning to be his interpreter for the date again. The girl didn't show up. I should stop here to explain something. Alex and I met at a very vulnerable time in my life. I will not go into details, but I was brokenhearted over a long relationship I'd been in, and I was not certain if that person and I were still together. My then boyfriend had decided to go back to the country where he'd been born, and he had left on bad terms. Not knowing what he wanted for his future for us, I told Alex about it one night. Okay, so the girl didn't show up, so I spent the whole day with him being his interpreter, showing him places and having a good time. The next day was a beach day. It was a Sunday, and I got to go to the hotel early in the morning. He was supposed to go with one of the girls he'd met, but guess what? This one didn't show up either. What in the world was happening? When he saw me, he told me how beautiful I looked. I blushed so much. He joked about something I can't remember. We all got in a big coach bus and made it to the beach house. All the gentlemen were there with their dates, and then there was Alex and I. We sat under a tree, started talking. We were eating, and we were making fun of some of the guys. There was an African-American gentleman who apparently was a well-known realtor in LA and had tons of money. His interpreter came over where Alex and I were sitting, and she told me the guy wanted to ask me on a date. I said to her that I was not interested. When she left, I told Alex, "Oh my gosh, look at his man boobs. They look like chocolate donuts." He started laughing, burst into tears, and I started laughing so hard that next day I knew I liked Alex Cox, and I could tell he liked me too. We went for a walk on the beach. We talked about his days as a massage therapist, among other things. He proposed to me that if I wanted to, he would give me a massage in exchange for a few free hours of interpreting. I agreed to it. We got back to the beach house and finally to the hotel almost at night. He told me to come up to the room with him because he didn't have any cash on him. We went upstairs. He gave me money and then he asked to kiss me. I stopped him right there and said to him, "Whoa, what are you doing? I told you I have a boyfriend." He said, "All right," and he kissed me back. I didn't stop him. I wanted him to kiss me honestly. I left. I got back the next day. During the day, it was a holiday, and we took a walk in the area. He held my hand as we were walking, and I didn't mind it. We stopped by a store, and he bought some almond oil for the massage. We got back to the hotel, went to his room, and he told me that he was going to give me the best massage of my life. I went to the bathroom and took off my clothes except my undies. I came out wrapped in a towel, nervous. He asked me to lay down on the bed, and then he started massaging my back. He told me that if I wanted to, he could give me a full body massage. I was so stinking nervous, but I agreed to it. He massaged my back, lower back, my buttocks, legs, and my feet. He started applying some techniques that he learned in massage school and told me how he helped many people. It started raining that night. It was pouring. He was absolutely right. It was the best massage of my entire life. His hands were strong and soft. He was not abusive, disrespectful, or did anything I didn't want him to. He then asked me if I wanted to turn and face him and he would massage the front of my body. I declined. I knew that would be my end if he touched my boobs. You know what I mean? I told him I was going to go home as he finished the massage. It lasted 2 hours, but again, it was pouring so hard he asked me to stay. I said, "Are you crazy? No way." He told me he would not do anything, and it was a really bad storm, so I agreed. He gave me one of his shirts to put on and socks. We were in the bed watching TV. Then we started talking, and we finally went to sleep, or at least I pretended I was sleeping. My heart was beating so extremely fast. I kept on asking myself, what in the world are you doing? He said something to me. I can't remember what it was. I turned to him quickly and we started kissing. We got a little physical. I told him to stop. I told him this was not right, and so he stopped. I told him I really wanted to sleep. We did sleep that night. We woke up the next day and went downstairs and had breakfast together. We kissed that morning, and he asked me if I felt the same way as I did the afternoon. When I went back to the hotel, he texted me and told me just to go upstairs to his room. He was still changing. I was wearing jeans that day, a cute top, and nice shoes. I sat on his bed and started telling him what we were doing was wrong. I said to him I was still kind of in a relationship and that I simply wanted to keep things business only. He got on his knees. He kissed me. He gently pushed me on the bed, and the next thing I knew was he was taking off my pants. Everything happened so fast, I was not even thinking. We had sex that day. I felt terrible afterwards, guilty, dirty. Those were not the values I was raised with. I knew better. I took a shower, and then we came out and he was folding some clothes. I changed and told him how I felt, and that's when we started talking a little bit more about him. He said to me that he'd been raised Mormon, but that he'd been kicked out of the church years ago, and when I asked why, he says, because I like sex way too much and I never wanted to wait until marriage. He told me also about a few sexual experiences he had. He said his family lived in Arizona. I can't remember if he was ever specific about his family members, but I think he was not. He simply said his family had lived in Arizona, period. We went out many times during the next couple of days. We really enjoyed each other. We would hold hands everywhere we went. One day he told me he rings. He asked me to try them on. He wanted to marry me. I didn't feel too comfortable with that. I was very confused, and of course everything was happening so fast. I found it odd, but it's a very common thing I've seen happen throughout matrimonial agencies. When I met Alex, I had already accepted a job overseas. He knew about it because it was one of the things we talked about when we were getting to know each other on the very first days. He said we could still talk at a distance. One of the things we talked about when imagining I'd marry him and go live with him in Arizona was the fact that I had a dog, and he said the dog stays here. I didn't like that. I don't know about you, but I'm a firm believer you cannot trust people who don't like dogs, LOL. I truly believe that. We also talked about me finishing college here. He was against college. He said a college degree was pointless. He said I could work as a condo administrator. What? The only time I felt scared with Alex was the second time we had sex. He had such a glare in those green eyes, such lust. I'm not lying. His eyes were shining in such an evil way that it made me feel uncomfortable, somewhat scared, but I ignored it, thinking he was simply enjoying it too much. I introduced him to one of my sisters one day. She knows about the current situation, and when I told her, she almost passed out. One odd thing that happened with him one day also, he was on his laptop checking his email and an email came through. He closed the laptop abruptly, but I was kind of able to see it was an email from a female. I could tell because of the name, but I can't recall right now. I asked him several times what he was hiding and he said nothing. When he left, I took him to the airport. He promised we would continue talking. He called me the next day when he got to Arizona. After that, we did talk several times. He asked me to end it with my ex, but I told him I was confused, that I really loved him. I think he gave up after that. If you are still reading this, I want you to know Alex was a sweet man. I'm not trying to make him look better because he's definitely involved in all of this somehow. I can only tell you what I know. He was very pleasing and never did anything I didn't want to. Sometimes I wonder if he liked Spanish women as a way of trying to escape from the stereotype of woman that reminded him of his mother. After all, he married Zulema. Sorry, I always say that wrong. Was it fake or real? I don't know. I found it very odd that in that note he sent to his friend while he was in jail, he referred to his mother as Janice. Tell Janice. I believe Alex was looking for true love, but he definitely was somewhat of a player too, I guess. I recently did a Google search with him, his Homer J. Maximus email account, and his email associated to a Russian dating website that ended up leading me to a secondary website with a bunch of naked women. I was told men like him always prey on the most vulnerable. I was very vulnerable at the time I met him, that's for sure, but I don't feel like he took advantage of me. He was funny and kind, also everybody liked him. He could definitely make you smile. You might be wondering how I found out what happened with him. Well, one day I walked into the house with my husband after going grocery shopping. I sat in the living room and turned on the TV. I was looking for YouTube videos when I saw the headlines of a mother who was found in Hawaii with her new husband while her children were missing. That's when I saw Nate Eaton asking Lori and Chad in Hawaii where the children were. When I saw her walking like a queen, like the queen of the world, and acting like nothing was happening, I thought to myself, what kind of mother is this? I have always been a huge fan of crime stories since I was little. I told myself I was going to Google the news about this woman, Lori. I never did, but 2 weeks later I was on Twitter and an article from the Daily Mail UK popped up on my phone with Chad and Lori's pic. When I started reading and scrolling, I saw a picture of Alex and read he died last year in December, and I went into shock mode. I cried very, very much. As time went by and I kept on discovering more things, I felt even more sad. One day my husband found me crying and I told him everything. I knew right there and then I'd married the most amazing man on earth. His words were perfect. No judgment or condemnation came from him. That husband is that ex-boyfriend I was in love with when I met Alex. I want to close with this. I'm so grateful I didn't marry him. Imagine what my life would have been like. I could have been a victim of Lori, maybe. I would have been a part of this horrible and heartbreaking case. Or maybe Alex would be alive if I'd only told him about Christ, my Savior. Alex knew about the Lord, but he didn't know him. And I'm sure. And of that, I'm sure. I still doubt he killed those children. I believe it was Lori and Chad, but sometimes I think, what do I know? Who knows what happened to him these past 6 years? You're entitled to think what you want, but know there's Lori's, Chad, Alex, and Melanies in your lives. People that could be going down the wrong path without even realizing it. There's also Tylee's, JJ's, and Charles who need you to speak up before it's too late. See something, say something, do something. P.S. Pardon any grammar errors. It's late and I'm tired, but I finally felt compelled to write this email. Thanks, True Crime Underground, Lori Daybell, Cult Mom, for keeping my identity a secret and for sharing these comments. So that's going to wrap it up. I found it really interesting. I find the whole situation creepy, and I would agree that this lady was in a vulnerable situation. I myself have traveled to Panama, which is not a far cry from what happens in Colombia. I know in Panama prostitution is legal, and a lot of U.S. men go there for that reason, because I'm telling you, the women in Panama, they all look like a Kardashian. No kidding. And Colombia is no different. You know, some of the best, least inexpensive plastic surgeons in the entire world are in Colombia. So Colombians, Panamanians, Jamaican women, they're just beautiful when you get that close to the equator. So but I've been there, and I know a lot of American men go there, and so it doesn't surprise me that Alex was trying to find a beautiful foreign woman. But it also makes me feel that he was awkward in some way, that he couldn't find someone here in the States. It also does bring up the point that he married Zulema quickly, and we've all thought that was pretty bizarre, but at this point we see that he dives in head first. So I thought this was a cool perspective, and I just wanted to share it with you and give you some gossip. So thanks for chatting. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. We're growing every day, and we're so thankful to have you, and we'll be updating you with more news, gossip, and anything that we come across that interests us here at Crime Chatter. Have a great evening.